Mike, tell us about encryption.
Eric, encryption is the highest level of data protection. It basically seals the data in a secure container. It's a lot more than just a Windows password. You need an encryption key to unlock the container. There are a lot of different kinds of encryption, but the government has recognized AES 256 through the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. It's called the FIPS 140-2 certification. And if someone's going to sell encryption, they really ought to be selling the government standard.
Are there different types of encryption?
Yeah, there are a lot of different types of encryption. You have encryption of data at rest. That's stored on a device. You have encryption of email. You have encryption of data in transit. You have encryption of data on mobile devices. And you have encryption of data in the cloud.
Mike, why is encryption so important?
Eric, encryption is important because data has a value to every business. Some businesses have important data, proprietary data. Think about the Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe or the Coca-Cola formula. But every business has something, customer lists, designs, some sort of proprietary data that they want to protect. You have other types of businesses that are regulated. So the government regulations or industry regulations require them to encrypt data. If they don't encrypt the data, they're in violation of the compliance regulations, and that can create a lot of problems, including lawsuits and government penalties.
You know, Mike, a lot of times it comes down to cost. What's really the cost justification for encryption?
Well, as I said, it can be a business impact if you have your proprietary information and someone gets a hold of it. One thing about encryption is that if data is encrypted and you take the hard drive out of a computer and move it to another computer, no one can get to your data. Right. If someone steals a computer, they can't get to the data. So the advantage of encryption is that it really protects that data at a higher level. The other cost justification is that if they are regulated and they lose the data, encryption's a get-out-of-jail-free card. State laws and federal regulations say that if data is encrypted on a device that's lost or stolen, you don't have to report it.
So, Mike, are there any risks associated with encryption?
Yeah, Eric, the big issue with encryption is that, as I said, it's a much higher level of protection than just a password. Managed service providers and IT companies often have tools that if someone loses their password, they can still get them to their data. With encryption, if you lose the password or the encryption key, that data is lost forever. So it's more important than ever to have good backups and protections of the data. The other thing you want to be careful of is that there shouldn't be one person that has the only access key to get to the encrypted data, because if something that happens to that person, then you're not going to be able to get to your data.
So if they lose the encryption key, then they're lost, essentially.
That data would be lost forever.
That is a risk. What are the opportunities associated with encryption?
Well, there are a lot of opportunities. First of all, when you go back to the different types of encryption, there are profitable products and services that a managed service provider can offer. So you have encryption of data at rest. You can offer full disk encryption or file encryption. When it comes to email encryption, there are tools that allow emails to be automatically encrypted that have different types of data. So if a social security number, for example, is recognized in an email, then the system would automatically encrypt that, or you can force the encryption manually. There's encryption of data between servers, and also encryption if people are working at home. We talk about VPNs when we set up firewalls. Those are virtual private networks through the internet. That's an encrypted tunnel. We have encryption of data on mobile devices. Beyond just selling the tool, using managed services to monitor the encryption is important. There was recently a data breach reported by a company that had encrypted its laptops, but they said they didn't have any evidence to show that the encryption was actually being used at the time the laptop was stolen. So if they had had a managed service provider monitoring that, they could have printed out reports that showed that the encryption was being used, and they would have avoided the data breach penalties.
So, Mike, to summarize, there's a huge opportunity for encryption for the MSP.
There is, and we're also seeing encryption being driven down from where it had been in the past. It used to be an option. Now the newer Windows operating systems and Macintosh operating systems are coming with encryption, but there's still an opportunity for the managed service provider to monitor it, be able to report on it, ensure that it's still working, and also email encryption and other types are still going to be profitable services.
So would you say that encryption is becoming more and more the standard in small business?
Absolutely.